I, 27 female, broke up with my boyfriend, 29 male, partly because of his relationship with his sister, 25 female. Help me understand if I was appropriate. I've been feeling a whirlwind of emotions since I broke up with my boyfriend of nearly 2 years, and I really need to share my experience to gain some perspective. One of the major reasons for our split was his relationship with his sister, who he lives with, and his mother. There was always something that felt off about their dynamic, but every time I tried to express my discomfort, he dismissed my feelings, making me feel like I was the one being unreasonable or jealous. Looking back, I can pinpoint several behaviors that made me uneasy. For starters, his sister often acted territorial toward him, especially when I was around. There were moments that felt competitive or protective in a way that was just strange. For instance, when she showed me a picture of a guy she was interested in, I casually commented that he was cute, and she immediately snapped back, implying I needed to respect her brother, even though I wasn't talking about him at all. Another time, during a conversation about men, I mentioned that some guys didn't know what they were doing in bed, and she jumped in defensively, asking if I was talking bad about her brother. It was bizarre how she seemed ready to defend him, even when I wasn't attacking him. Then there were the constant calls for his attention, even when we were together. If he came over to see me, she would call him to share where she was, who she was with, or to involve him in her latest drama. It felt like she needed his validation in a way that was far beyond normal sibling check-ins. I also noticed that she would often compare herself to me, making comments about how she used to be thin like me, and suggesting beauty tips that didn't align with my style at all. It felt like I was competing for his emotional space, which was exhausting. The family dynamic only added to my discomfort. They made inappropriate comments about him that I found unsettling. For example, his sister would slap his butt and jokingly say things like, "If he wasn't my brother, I'd date him." Their teasing didn't feel like typical sibling banter. It felt boundaryless and confusing. Whenever I tried to address my concerns, he would minimize my feelings. He'd say things like, "She didn't mean it like that," or "You're overthinking." It was as if he couldn't see how uncomfortable their interactions made me, and instead, I felt like I was the one with the problem. I also felt immense pressure to be accepted by his family. He would often say things like, "They don't know you," and "You should try harder." It was clear that his family had a history of being disrespectful to partners, and I didn't want to be the next target. Yet he acted like it was my responsibility to win them over, rather than his duty to protect me or set boundaries. Ultimately, I realized I didn't want to marry into a family dynamic that felt so intrusive and boundaryless. When I finally voiced my concerns about their closeness, he didn't believe me. He thought their relationship was normal and that I was misinterpreting everything. Now that I'm out of that relationship, I'm grappling with guilt and confusion. I can't help but wonder if I was wrong to feel uncomfortable about their relationship. Was I the bad guy for wanting to set boundaries around what felt like an inappropriate sibling dynamic? Am I the bad guy for telling my wife I want a divorce and don't trust her? I got married to Eva last year, and we've been together for a total of 4 years. When we first met, she was upfront about her dating history, including some one-night stands before we committed to each other. I appreciated her honesty, so I didn't think much of it at the time. However, things started to shift after our wedding. One day, while hanging out with some of her friends, they began discussing Eva's type, and I quickly realized I didn't fit the mold. They mentioned a guy named Brennan, who was one of her past flings. To my surprise, Eva confirmed that he wanted to be more than friends. This revelation was just the tip of the iceberg. I learned that there were 2 other guys in her friend group who also chatted with her regularly and were interested in her. When I confronted Eva about it, she insisted that she didn't see any harm in letting them chatted as long as she maintained her boundaries. She assured me that just because they were her type didn't mean she would cheat. But when I asked her how she would feel if I were friends with an ex who still had feelings for me, she dismissed my concerns, claiming it was different since I had only been in serious relationships. She got annoyed and accused me of twisting things. The more we talked, the more my discomfort grew. I realized she had never mentioned that one of her past flings was a friend, and now she was maintaining friendships with guys who were clearly interested in her. What troubled me even more was how she seemed to chatted back sometimes. I noticed her discussing how exciting and attractive party-loving bad boys were, and it stung to hear her say that in front of those very guys. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being naive for trusting her. When I pointed out her behavior, she insisted it was just friendly, but I couldn't help but notice the differences in how she interacted with her male friends compared to her female ones. After reflecting on everything, I realized I just didn't trust her anymore. I knew I couldn't accept this dynamic, especially since she had made it clear she wouldn't stop being friends with them. A couple of weeks ago, I finally told her I wanted a divorce. When she asked why, I was honest and told her it was because I didn't trust her. She accused me of using that as a cop-out, and said it was a poor reason to end our marriage. But I felt it was better to end things now rather than let it devolve into a toxic situation. I've been questioning whether I'm being unreasonable or if my feelings are justified. Am I the bad guy for wanting to walk away? My mom admits she resents me for needing therapy when she started blending our family with her husband's, and I told her it was her job to. When I was 6 years old, my dad passed away from a seizure, and my mom and I were there for the whole traumatic experience. A year later, she started dating again, but it wasn't until I was 9 that she met her husband. They dated for about 5 months before they began blending our families, which was incredibly difficult for me. I struggled with the presence of my mom's new husband and his kids. The hardest part was feeling like I was losing my family, as my mom wanted my paternal relatives to accept them, as if they were part of our family. This change affected me deeply. I started having nightmares, losing focus in school, and oddly enough, I would get so anxious about spending time with them that I would actually throw up. After a particularly rough patch, I expressed my feelings to my mom, telling her how much I hated the situation and how I felt like my dad's family was being pushed aside. She didn't respond for weeks, and when she finally did, she told me she was sending me to a therapist. I attended a few sessions alone, and then my mom joined me for a couple of them. Over 2 years, I opened up about my feelings, and my therapist communicated with my mom, which helped a bit. Eventually, my mom married her husband, and I thought things might improve. She agreed to spend one-on-one time with me and to honor my dad's memory on special occasions, but those promises often went unfulfilled. I tried to get along with her husband's kids, but after a few months, I stopped putting in the effort. We coexisted without fighting, but we never truly blended as a family. For the last 2 years, my mom has openly resented me for needing therapy. She feels that it was a waste of time, since we never became a cohesive family unit. She often expresses frustration that I didn't just embrace her new family and be the easygoing kid she wanted. I tried to ignore her comments for a long time, but her family would remind her that I wasn't her, and as a parent, it was her responsibility to ensure I was okay. Recently, during a conversation after one of her husband's kids mentioned not really knowing me, my mom expressed her resentment again. She asked what she did to deserve a difficult kid like me, who needed therapy and couldn't just be happy for her. I reminded her that she had broken her promises to spend time with me and to remember my dad. She dismissed my feelings, saying those were different issues and that I was making excuses. In a moment of frustration, I told her that it was her job to support me as her child and that resenting me for needing help was unfair. I felt it was even worse that she continued to hold on to that resentment. She was taken aback and said I was supposed to feel guilty for the stress I caused her and the delays in her happiness. I'm left wondering if I'm in the wrong for feeling this way, or if I'm justified in my feelings about our situation.
My dad died and left £3 million to my 2 younger brothers, 21 and 23. I got 0. A few months ago, I faced one of the toughest moments of my life when my father passed away. It was a devastating loss, and I was still grappling with the grief when I learned something that left me feeling utterly crushed. My father had left his entire estate, worth around £3 million, to my 2 younger brothers, while I received nothing. The reasoning behind this decision was infuriating. He believed that my future husband would take care of me. At 27 years old and single, I had worked hard to build my independence and establish my own life. The idea that my worth was tied to some outdated notion of a man providing for me felt not only insulting, but also deeply hurtful. My brothers, who were 21 and 23, were not struggling financially. Yet they accepted their inheritance without a second thought. I felt a mix of anger and betrayal, realizing that even in 2025, some people still cling to sexist beliefs. After sharing my story online, I received an outpouring of support and advice. One commenter pointed out that under UK law, I might have grounds to challenge my father's will. The Inheritance Provision for Family and Dependents Act of 1975 allows disinherited children to contest wills that do not make reasonable provision. This glimmer of hope encouraged me to seek legal advice and explore my options. As I navigated this emotional turmoil, I hoped my brothers would stand by me. I knew they were good people at heart, but I was unsure how they would react to the situation. I was overwhelmed with the thought that I might have to fight for what I believed was rightfully mine. Fast forward a month, and I had some good news to share. After many difficult conversations and some soul-searching, my brothers and I reached an agreement. We would split our father's estate equally among the 3 of us. Once I expressed how unfair the situation felt, they listened. With the help of legal advice, we found a straightforward way to adjust the distribution so that everyone was treated fairly. My brothers apologized for not realizing how hurtful their acceptance of the inheritance was at the time. It was a relief to see them understand my perspective, and I felt a renewed sense of hope for our family. The paperwork was signed, and the funds were expected to be distributed soon. Reflecting on this experience, I realized that the situation could have torn us apart, but instead, it brought us closer together. It showed me the strength of our family bond and the importance of standing up for myself. The sexism that had lingered in our family would end with my father, and I was grateful to have my brothers by my side in this journey toward equality.